She stood alone at the microphone, her voice barely audible as she claimed her mother was among the first female Navy SEALs. The laughter started slowly, then erupted across the gymnasium. Even the teachers smirked. Nobody believed her. Nobody defended her. As tears welled in her eyes, she sent a single text message. Seconds later, the gymnasium doors burst open with military precision. 6 Navy SEALs in full uniform marched in, silencing every voice in the room. The truth had arrived with overwhelming force. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If this story touched you, please consider subscribing to see more powerful moments of vindication and truth. The Veterans Day decorations hung limply in Riverside Middle School's gymnasium, their patriotic colors dulled under fluorescent lights. Hundreds of students filled the bleachers, a restless sea of adolescent energy barely contained by the teachers stationed along the walls. Principal Gunderson's voice echoed through the PA system as he announced the final segment of their assembly. And now, our 7th graders will share stories about heroes and their families. 12-year-old Wren Calloway sat alone in the 3rd row, methodically straightening the edges of her index cards. Unlike her classmates in their casual hoodies and jeans, Wren wore a crisp white button-up and navy slacks, a uniform of sorts that hung slightly loose on her small frame. Her dark hair was pulled back in 2 neat but slightly lopsided braids, revealing eyes that seemed older than her years. Around her, students whispered and fidgeted. The popular crowd, centered around Lachlan Mercer with his designer clothes and perpetual smirk, had grown increasingly disruptive with each presentation. "Bryce Hoffman," called Principal Gunderson. A confident boy strode to the microphone, launching into a polished story about his grandfather storming Normandy. Polite applause followed. 2 more students presented, one about an uncle who served in Afghanistan, another about a cousin in the Air Force. Wren's hands trembled slightly as she reviewed her notes. She glanced at her wrist, where her mother's old tactical watch hung loosely, its face scratched from years of use. The second hand ticked steadily forward. Next up, Wren Calloway will tell us about her hero. The walk to the microphone felt endless. Whispers followed her path. "Who's that?" "The quiet, weird girl." "This should be good," muttered Lachlan to his friends. Wren approached the stand, adjusted the microphone downward, and took a deep breath. Her voice came out as barely more than a whisper. "Could you speak up, please?" Principal Gunderson prompted, checking his watch. Wren cleared her throat and started again. "My mother, Commander Bellamy Calloway, was among the first women to complete SEAL training after the combat exclusion policy was lifted." A beat of silence fell across the gymnasium before Lachlan's distinctive snicker cut through it. Several students joined in, their laughter spreading like wildfire. "She led specialized missions in," Wren continued, her voice growing smaller as the laughter grew louder. "Yeah, right," Lachlan called out, standing to gain attention. "My dad's been in the Navy 15 years. He says there's never been a female SEAL. Ever." The laughter doubled. Vice Principal Harwick stepped forward with a half-hearted, "Let's keep our comments respectful," but made no move to correct the misinformation. From her peripheral vision, Wren noticed Mr. Finster, the history teacher, leaning against the wall with an amused smirk. No adult was going to help her. "My mother served with distinction in—" Wren tried again, her voice now barely audible over the growing mockery. "Thank you, Wren," Principal Gunderson interrupted, taking the microphone. "Perhaps next time, choose a topic you can verify with evidence." Scattered laughter followed Wren back to her seat, where she sat rigid, eyes forward, refusing to let tears fall. One girl, Zephyr Okafor, watched her with sympathetic eyes, but remained silent. "My mom says her mom's just a secretary who makes up stories," Lachlan called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. Wren's fingers wrapped around her phone. With a swift movement, she typed a single message and hit send. "They don't believe me." Across the gymnasium, Mr. Finster made eye contact with Principal Gunderson and gave a dismissive shake of his head. The principal cleared his throat and continued with the assembly. "Before we dismiss, let's remember what Veterans Day truly means. It's about honoring those who have served our country with valor and integrity, those who have documented verifiable service records." He emphasized these last words with a pointed glance toward Wren. The heat of humiliation crawled up Wren's neck. She kept her gaze fixed on the scuffed floor, wishing for invisibility. The tactical watch felt suddenly heavy on her wrist. a reminder of everything she couldn't make them understand. Behind her, Lachlan and his friends continued their whispered mockery. "SEAL Team 6, reporting for duty," one boy whispered in a high-pitched voice, sending the others into suppressed laughter. "Maybe her mom was a SEAL, like the animal," another added, miming flippers with his hands. Wren didn't turn around. She'd learned long ago that acknowledging them only made it worse. Instead, she focused on the watch, counting seconds, then minutes. 23 minutes until lunch period. 23 minutes to endure. Principal Gunderson droned on about respecting veterans and the upcoming moment of silence. Wren barely heard him through the fog of embarrassment. The gymnasium felt too warm, too crowded, the air thick with judgment. She wondered if she should have listened to her mother that morning. "You don't need to mention my service," Commander Calloway had said over breakfast, her expression unreadable as always. "There are other things you could talk about, but you're my hero," Wren had insisted. "That's what the assignment is about." Her mother had given her that look, the one that seemed to see right through any argument. "People may not understand. The program is still classified in many aspects. But it's not a secret that women can serve now. It was in the news. News coverage and reality are often different things, Wren. People believe what fits their worldview." Wren wished now she'd heeded that warning. Her mother rarely spoke about her work, rarely corrected misconceptions. "Actions speak," she would say. "Words just fill space." The phone in her hand vibrated with an incoming message. Wren angled it carefully to avoid teacher detection, then glanced down. "Stay put. Standing by." Two simple phrases that sent a chill down her spine. It was her mother's standard acknowledgement, the response to any situation report. But the second part, "standing by," that meant something else entirely. That meant operational status. A tiny flicker of something, not quite hope, but adjacent to it, sparked in Wren's chest. She quickly tucked the phone away and straightened her posture slightly. Across the aisle, Zephyr was still watching her, an unasked question in her expression. Wren gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Something was about to happen. Principal Gunderson concluded his remarks and announced that students would be dismissed by grade levels. 8th graders first, then 6th, saving the 7th grade for last due to their presentations. A collective groan rose from Wren's classmates. "Before dismissal," the principal added, "I want to again thank all our veterans and active service members, the men who stand on walls and fight in distant lands so we can live in freedom." The emphasis on men wasn't lost on Wren. She bit the inside of her cheek, holding back words that wouldn't matter anyway. Vice Principal Harwick began coordinating the dismissal, directing 8th graders toward the east exit. The gymnasium buzzed with renewed energy as students prepared to leave. Lachlan and his friends stood, stretching dramatically to emphasize how long they'd been sitting. "Hey, SEAL Team Crybaby," Lachlan said, just loud enough for those nearby to hear. "Did your mom ever kill anyone with her lipstick, or did she just file the paperwork for the real soldiers?" His friends snickered on cue. One of them, a boy named Preston, added, "Maybe she was a Navy SEAL team mascot. You know, like a cheerleader." Wren remained seated, her expression carefully neutral. The spark had grown into something more substantial now, a certainty that solidified in her stomach. She checked the tactical watch again. 3 minutes had passed since her mother's message, "standing by." In military terms, it meant forces were in position, awaiting orders. It meant readiness. It meant imminent action. Principal Gunderson was mid-sentence about maintaining order during dismissal when a sound interrupted him. Distant at first, then growing louder with each passing second. Rhythmic footsteps, moving with mechanical precision down the hallway outside the gymnasium. Several heads turned toward the doors. The principal faltered, confused by the interruption. The rhythm grew louder, closer. Boot steps, multiple sets. In perfect synchronization. Wren knew that sound intimately. It was the sound that had often woken her on early mornings when her mother's unit had training exercises. The sound of disciplined movement, of collective purpose. The sound of what her mother really was, despite all the disbelief in this room. Principal Gunderson raised a hand, signaling to Vice Principal Harwick to check the hallway. The vice principal moved toward the doors, her confusion evident. The footsteps stopped directly outside the gymnasium doors. A hushed anticipation fell over the crowd. Even Lachlan and his friends grew silent, curiosity overriding their need to mock. Wren sat very still, waiting. The tactical watch on her wrist showed exactly 4 minutes since her mother's message. Right on schedule. The gymnasium doors burst open with military precision, the sound reverberating through the suddenly silent room. 6 Navy SEALs in full-dress uniforms entered in perfect formation, moving as a single unit. Their faces revealed nothing, eyes forward, postures immaculate against the backdrop of faded decorations and stunned teenagers. Every conversation stopped mid-sentence. Every whisper died instantly. Even the shuffling of feet ceased as all eyes fixed on the unexpected visitors. The SEALs marched down the center aisle, their polished boots striking the hardwood floor in perfect rhythm. Each step echoed in the cavernous space, filling the silence with a sound that demanded attention and respect. At the center of the formation walked Commander Bellamy Calloway. Unlike the fabrications Lachlan and his friends had imagined, there was nothing soft about her presence. She carried herself with the unmistakable authority of someone accustomed to making life and death decisions. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, her uniform adorned with multiple commendations that caught the fluorescent light. Though she matched her team in expression and precision, something in her eyes burned differently, a controlled intensity that surveyed the room with calculated awareness. Principal Gunderson stood frozen at the microphone, mouth opening and closing without producing sound. He recognized the insignia, the meaning of the uniforms, the unmistakable presence of an elite unit. His eyes darted nervously between the approaching SEALs and Wren, who remained seated, watching with quiet vindication. Lachlan Mercer sank lower in his seat, his earlier bravado evaporating under the weight of reality marching toward him. Preston and the other boys, who had been so quick to join the mockery, now stared with expressions caught between awe and dread. Several teachers straightened instinctively, as if being inspected. Mr. Finster, the history teacher who had smirked during Wren's presentation, now stood rigidly against the wall, his face drained of color. The SEALs reached the front of the gymnasium and stopped in perfect unison, their formation splitting to create a corridor through which Commander Calloway stepped forward. Without acknowledging the principal or any other adult, she walked directly to where Wren sat. Wren rose to her feet, her posture shifting subtly into the same disciplined stance her mother embodied. For a moment, the resemblance between them became striking, visible to everyone watching. Without speaking, Commander Calloway performed a formal salute to her daughter. Wren returned it with perfect form, a movement practiced countless times at home, away from judgmental eyes. It was their private ritual, now made public in the most dramatic way possible. The gymnasium remained utterly silent, hundreds of eyes witnessing what many had deemed impossible just minutes earlier. Commander Calloway turned to face the assembly. The SEALs formed a line behind her, a human wall of discipline and capability. She approached Principal Gunderson, who still clutched the microphone with a white-knuckled grip. "Principal Gunderson," she said, her voice calm but carrying to every corner of the room. "We heard your school was honoring veterans today. My team and I were nearby on training exercises and thought we would accept your invitation." Her tone conveyed no accusation, but her presence alone was correction enough. She extended her hand, and the principal relinquished the microphone with visible relief. "Commander Calloway and her unit," he managed to say, his voice cracking slightly. "We are truly honored by your unexpected visit." The commander nodded once, acknowledging him without warmth. "Students of Riverside Middle School," she addressed the assembly, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being heard the first time. "Today you have been learning about service and sacrifice, about the people who ensure your safety, often from places you cannot see and in ways you may not understand." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the bleachers. Many students shifted uncomfortably under her scrutiny. "The nature of our work means that much of what we do remains classified. This can sometimes lead to misconceptions about who serves and how they serve." Vice Principal Harwick stepped forward, attempting to regain some control of the situation. "Perhaps we could take this conversation to the office, Commander. The students have a schedule to maintain, and we would be happy to speak with you privately about any concerns." Commander Calloway turned slowly to face her, the movement so controlled it seemed more intimidating than any quick reaction. "I believe education was the purpose of today's assembly," she replied. "My team has valuable information to share about military service that aligns perfectly with your Veterans Day." Objectives. The vice principal retreated a step, nodding quickly. Of course. Please continue. Commander Calloway returned her attention to the students. In 2015, all combat roles in the United States military were officially open to women. This followed decades of women serving in combat zones, despite restrictions, proving repeatedly that capability is not determined by gender. She gestured to her team. Lieutenant Rivera specializes in underwater demolition. Chief Petty Officer Washington is our communications expert. Petty Officer Abernathy is a sniper with over 40 confirmed eliminations of high-value targets. Each member acknowledged their introduction with a slight nod, their expressions remaining professionally neutral. Together, we have conducted operations in 17 countries across 4 continents. The details of those missions remain classified, but the reality of our service does not. She handed the microphone back to Principal Gunderson, who appeared unsure whether to end the assembly or allow the unexpected lesson to continue. Wren stood beside her mother now, chin raised slightly, her earlier humiliation replaced with quiet dignity. She did not look at Lachlan or any of her tormentors. She did not need to. Principal Gunderson cleared his throat. We are very grateful for this informative presentation, Commander. Students, please join me in showing our appreciation to Commander Calloway and her team for their service. Applause erupted, enthusiastic and genuine. Several students stood, including Zephyr, who caught Wren's eye and smiled. As the applause continued, Lachlan slowly raised his hand. Principal Gunderson, perhaps seeing an opportunity to restore some normalcy, acknowledged him. Yes, Mr. Mercer? Lachlan stood, his usual confidence noticeably absent. Sir, I have a question for the commander, if that's allowed. All eyes turned to Commander Calloway, who gave a single nod of permission. My father is Lieutenant Commander Mercer at Naval Station Norfolk, Lachlan said, his voice unusually subdued. He told me there had never been female SEALs. Was he wrong, or is there something he isn't allowed to know? The question hung in the air, a challenge wrapped in apparent respect. The gymnasium grew tense again, waiting for the commander's response. Commander Calloway studied the boy for a moment before answering. Your father serves honorably, I'm sure. The integration of women into special operations has been gradual and, in some cases, compartmentalized. Information is shared on a need-to-know basis, even within the service. She paused, then added, When you speak with him next, please convey my respect. Tell him Tactical Team Epsilon sends regards. Lachlan's eyes widened slightly. He nodded and sat down without another word. Principal Gunderson, sensing the shifting dynamics, attempted to reassert control over the assembly. Well, this has certainly been educational. Now, as we were beginning dismissal, 8th grade will proceed to the east exit, followed by 6th and then 7th. Commander Calloway turned to her team and gave a subtle hand signal. The SEALs immediately reformed their line and prepared to depart. Before they could move, however, Mr. Finster stepped forward from his position against the wall. The history teacher's earlier smirk had been replaced by an expression of genuine contrition. Commander, he said, his voice carrying despite the lack of amplification, would you and your team consider visiting my 8th grade history class? I believe we could all benefit from a more accurate understanding of modern military service. Commander Calloway regarded him carefully, noting the change in his demeanor. We have a limited window before returning to base, she replied, but perhaps a brief visit would be possible. She glanced at Wren, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. Very well, the commander said. We can spare 20 minutes. Principal Gunderson quickly jumped on the opportunity. Excellent. In that case, let's modify our dismissal plan. 8th graders will remain for Commander Calloway's presentation. 7th and 6th grades are dismissed to their next classes. As students began moving, Zephyr approached Wren while keeping a respectful distance from Commander Calloway. That was amazing, she said quietly. I should have stood up for you earlier. I'm sorry. Wren studied her for a moment before replying. It's okay. Not many people do. Can I sit with you at lunch later? Zephyr asked. The question seemed to surprise Wren. She nodded slowly. Sure. As 7th graders filed toward the exit, several students approached Wren, offering awkward apologies or simply staring in newfound respect. She acknowledged them with quiet dignity, neither rejecting their overtures nor appearing overly eager for their sudden attention. Lachlan and his friends kept their distance, their earlier mockery replaced by silent contemplation. The reality of who Wren's mother was, of what they had ridiculed so carelessly, had fundamentally altered their perception. Principal Gunderson approached Commander Calloway with an obsequious smile. "Commander, on behalf of Riverside Middle School, I want to express our deepest appreciation for your visit. Had we known you would be joining us, we certainly would have prepared a more appropriate welcome." "Surprise is a tactical advantage, Principal Gunderson," she replied, her expression unreadable. "It reveals truths that might otherwise remain hidden." The principal swallowed hard, understanding the implication. As the gymnasium cleared, Wren remained beside her mother, neither of them speaking. They didn't need to. The mission had been accomplished with the precision and effectiveness that defined Commander Calloway's career. The truth had been established without a single accusation being made. Actions, after all, spoke louder than words. The assembly schedule had long since been abandoned, as eighth graders settled back into their seats for the impromptu presentation. Commander Calloway stood at ease before them, her team positioned strategically around the gymnasium. The atmosphere had transformed entirely, the earlier mockery replaced by attentive silence. Mr. Finster, now assuming the role of facilitator rather than skeptic, addressed his students with newfound enthusiasm. "Today we have an unprecedented opportunity to learn about modern military operations from Commander Calloway and her specialized unit. As we've been studying post-9/11 conflicts, this first-hand perspective is invaluable." Commander Calloway stepped forward, her movements economical and precise. "I'll begin with context," she said, her voice clear and measured. "Special operations have evolved significantly over the past decade. The integration of women into combat roles represents not just a social evolution, but a tactical one." She proceeded to explain how diverse teams brought different perspectives to problem-solving in the field, how various physical attributes could be advantageous in different scenarios, and how the most effective units leveraged diverse capabilities rather than adhering to outdated standards. Throughout her explanation, she chose her words carefully, navigating the boundaries between classified information and educational content. She never directly addressed the earlier mockery, never singled out individuals for their disbelief. She didn't need to. Her presence alone had corrected the record. As Commander Calloway spoke, Wren sat in the front row, watching her classmates' reactions. Many listened with genuine interest, some took notes. Others simply stared in awe at the team of elite operators standing before them. Principal Gunderson hovered nearby, interjecting occasional comments about the school's great respect for military service, and how they always encourage students to think beyond stereotypes. Each comment seemed designed to rewrite the narrative of what had happened earlier, to absolve the administration of its failure to support Wren. Commander Calloway acknowledged him with professional courtesy, but offered no absolution. When she opened the floor for questions, dozens of hands shot up. She pointed to a girl in the third row. "How long is the training?" "Basic SEAL training, known as BIA-S, lasts approximately 6 months. It's followed by qualification training and specialized skills development. The entire pipeline typically takes over a year, often longer." She called on another student. "What's the hardest part?" The commander considered this for a moment. "Most candidates expect physical challenges to be the greatest hurdle. In reality, mental resilience proves more decisive. The ability to continue functioning at peak performance while exhausted, cold, and uncomfortable separates those who succeed from those who don't." Questions continued, each answered with the same measured precision. As the session progressed, the students' queries evolved from basic curiosity to more thoughtful considerations about service, sacrifice, and the changing nature of warfare. Throughout the exchange, Wren remained silent, content to observe this rare glimpse of her mother's professional world. At home, Commander Calloway rarely discussed her work, maintaining the compartmentalization that her position required. Here, watching her mother navigate these questions with such ease, Wren felt a renewed sense of pride. After 20 minutes, Commander Calloway checked her watch and signaled to her team. They immediately stood at attention, ready to depart. "We need to return to base," she announced. "Thank you for your attention and thoughtful questions." Mr. Finster stepped forward, extending his hand. "Commander, thank you for this incredible opportunity. You've given us much to consider about modern military service." She shook his hand firmly. "History is always evolving, Mr. Finster, even as we document it." The subtle reminder of his earlier dismissal of Ren's presentation did not go unnoticed. The history teacher nodded, accepting the gentle rebuke. "A lesson I won't forget," he replied quietly. As the SEALs prepared to leave, students stood respectfully. Principal Gunderson announced that 8th graders would now be dismissed to their next class, while the SEALs would exit through the main corridor. Wren gathered her belongings, unsure whether to follow her mother or continue with her school day. Before she could decide, Commander Calloway approached her. "Will you walk us out?" she asked, the formal tone she had maintained throughout the presentation softening slightly. Wren nodded, slinging her backpack over one shoulder. Together, they led the procession out of the gymnasium, the SEALs falling into formation behind them. The hallway had filled with students changing classes, many pressing against lockers to make way for the unexpected visitors. Whispers followed their progress, along with pointed fingers and wide eyes. Near the main entrance, they encountered Lachlan, standing alone by his locker. His usual entourage was notably absent. When he saw Commander Calloway and Wren approaching, he straightened his posture instinctively. Commander Calloway stopped, her team halting in perfect synchronization behind her. "Mr. Mercer," she said, her tone neutral. Lachlan swallowed visibly. "Commander?" For a moment, it seemed the interaction would end there. Then Lachlan glanced at Wren. "Your mom is pretty impressive," he said, struggling to meet her eyes. Wren regarded him steadily, her expression betraying nothing. "Yes," she replied simply. "She is." The acknowledgement hung between them, neither an acceptance of his implied apology nor a rejection of it. After a moment, Wren continued walking, her mother beside her, the team behind them. Lachlan watched them go, his expression thoughtful. Outside, morning had given way to early afternoon, the November sun casting long shadows across the school grounds. A line of black SUVs waited in the parking lot, engines running. Several students had gathered at classroom windows, watching the proceedings with undisguised curiosity. Commander Calloway turned to her daughter. "Will you be all right for the remainder of the day?" The question contained layers of meaning that only Wren could fully interpret. Will you be safe? Will they treat you differently now? Do you want to leave? Wren considered it briefly before nodding. "I'll be fine." Her mother studied her face, reading the truth behind the simple response. "Very well. We'll talk more this evening." Before they could part, Vice Principal Harwick emerged from the building, slightly breathless from hurrying after them. "Commander Calloway," she called. "A moment, please." The commander turned, her expression returning to its professional neutrality. "Yes?" Vice Principal Harwick approached, stopping at a respectful distance. "I wanted to personally thank you for your visit today. It was quite enlightening for our students." She glanced at Wren, then back to the commander. "I also wanted to apologize for any misunderstanding during the assembly. Had we been aware of your service record, we certainly would have responded differently to Wren's presentation." Commander Calloway regarded her steadily. "The validity of my daughter's words should not have depended on my ability to verify them in person. Vice Principal Harwick." The administrator flushed slightly. "Of course not. You're absolutely right. I assure you, we take incidents of this nature very seriously. Rest assured, we'll be addressing it immediately." "I'm certain you will," Commander Calloway replied, her tone making it clear she expected nothing less. With a final nod to the vice principal, she turned back to Wren. 1800 hours, she said, reverting to military time. "Don't be late for dinner." Wren's lips curved in the barest hint of a smile. "Yes, ma'am?" Commander Calloway rejoined her team, and within moments they had entered the waiting vehicles and departed, leaving the school to process what had transpired. As Wren turned to re-enter the building, she found Zephyr waiting just inside the doors. "That was the coolest thing I've ever seen," Zephyr said, falling into step beside her. "Your mom is like something from a movie, except real." Wren adjusted her backpack strap. "She's just doing her job." "Is it weird having a mom who does, secret missions and stuff?" "Sometimes," Wren admitted. "She's gone a lot, and we move every few years." "That must be hard," Wren shrugged. "You get used to it." They walked in silence for a moment before Zephyr spoke again. "You know everyone's going to be talking about this for, the rest of the year, right?" "Probably." "And Lachlan looked like he was going to pass out when your mom stopped to talk to him." Despite herself, Wren smiled. That was a bonus. They reached the cafeteria, where lunch. Period had already begun. As they entered, conversation dimmed noticeably, then resumed at a higher volume. Dozens of eyes followed Ren as she made her way through the food line, Zephyr beside her. When they had their trays, Ren led them to an empty table in the corner, her usual spot. Before they could sit, however, another girl approached, tray in hand. "Can I join you?" she asked hesitantly. Ren recognized her as Amara Patel, one of the quiet students from her English class. Before today, they had never spoken outside of group assignments. Ren nodded, and Amara sat down gratefully. Within minutes, 2 more students had joined their table, each offering a tentative greeting to Ren before sitting. The isolation that had defined her school experience was dissolving, replaced by a cautious interest from her peers. Across the cafeteria, Lachlan sat with his usual group, though their dynamic appeared subdued. Several times he glanced in Ren's direction, his expression unreadable. As lunch progressed, Ren found herself answering questions about her mother, selecting which details she could share and which remained private. She spoke briefly about the multiple moves, the long deployments, the postcards that arrived from unnamed locations. She mentioned the early morning training routines and the strict household discipline. "It sounds intense," Amara commented. Ren considered this. "It is, but it also makes sense once you understand it." The conversation shifted to other topics, normal middle school concerns about assignments and activities. Gradually, Ren felt herself relaxing, participating in the kind of ordinary social interaction that had often eluded her. When the bell rang, signaling the end of lunch period, Zephyr walked with her to their next class. "So," Zephyr said as they navigated the crowded hallway, "are we friends now?" The directness of the question caught Ren off guard. She thought about the commander's approach to relationships, practical and unembellished. "Yes," she decided. "We are." Zephyr grinned. "Good, because I have so many more questions about your mom." Ren shook her head, but she was smiling too. "Some of those will have to remain classified." As they entered their science classroom, Mr. Finster was waiting outside the door. He straightened when he saw Ren. "Ms. Calloway," he said formally, "I wanted to apologize for my reaction during your presentation this morning. It was unprofessional and discourteous." Ren regarded him with the same steady gaze her mother had used on so many occasions. "Thank you, Mr. Finster," she replied simply. The teacher nodded, seeming to understand that some bridges, once damaged, required more than words to repair. The rest of the school day passed in a blur of curious glances and whispered conversations. By the final bell, Ren had received more attention than in all her previous months at Riverside combined. It was exhausting, but not entirely unwelcome. As she walked out the front entrance, she noticed Mr. Finster standing near the flagpole, watching the departing students. When he saw Ren, he raised his hand in a respectful salute. Ren didn't look back to see it. She didn't need to. She walked toward home, her stride matching the one she had practiced with her mother on countless mornings, both of them warriors in their own way, one who fought on distant battlefields, and one who faced her own battles every day in these hallways. The truth had arrived with overwhelming force, and no one who witnessed it would ever forget.